Why do so many PhDs regret doing the research path and nobody really wants to openly talk about this? I'm going to tell you a bit of a story and then give you two paths that I think we can pursue. And one of them I think is better than the other. So, when I actually talk about the challenges of doing research, many people don't believe what I'm actually talking about. If you're not in the game, you really don't understand how it actually feels and the competition that you actually feel. And many people don't believe that, particularly those that are outside, that we have to compete on ideas. And if you don't get there, then inevitably you feel like a failure. Everybody thinks that, oh, you're doing something that's really amazing. You get to kind of just study on your own. And what you don't know and what you don't understand is that our careers, our lives, everything is built around if we get paid. I went 2 years after my PhD of not getting paid and trying to figure out ways to get money. And that was after 5 years of doing a PhD at the top business school in Canada and going, my undergraduate degree was at the best engineering school. It's not like I was a slouch in any sort of way. I actually was working really hard. And I was doing work all of the time. And so you process this and you start thinking that you are a failure, you're behind, and everybody is going to tell you that. The whole system is going to tell you that you are not doing good enough. Everything about it is a very just like kick in the gut all of the time. So what do we do, right? So, and at the beginning, it's kind of exciting because you get pulled into all of this and you're like, oh, I'm making so much progress. I see that I'm doing really, really well. And what happens is that after some time, you get to realize that actually it's not giving you the rewards that you thought it should give. And so there's two ways that we often deal with this. First way is the way that I've learned how to deal with it. And that's the way where I have developed a screw you to the rest of the world. I look at you and I just view you with contempt. And I know that this is where like people don't want to openly talk about this. But I know I am damn good. I know that I am a remarkable person. And if you're not going to value that, I don't need you in my life. I cut you off and I think about I am just damn good. And with this confidence, this quiet confidence that I called it, I actually took it off of somebody online, and I can't remember the guy's name, but the quiet confidence that you get inside of you are just good and you don't have to listen to anybody and you're actually doing the right things takes a lot of work. And there is a lot of spite that's behind that. There's a lot of contempt. There's a lot of feelings that people would say are very, very negative. And to me, that's how I deal with things. And I know that people don't want to hear that. That's why we often don't want to voice it. But that's how I deal with things. I have to walk around with a sense of confidence. And if you met me in person, you wouldn't think that I felt like that. You probably think that everybody says that everybody thinks that I'm the nicest person. But I secretly think that, you know what, I'm not going to let anybody push me around in my head. And I'm done with all of those games. And I'm just going to friggin' leave you on the street if you're going to do any of those games. If you're not going to treat me nicely, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to give you the dead fish. All of those things is how I deal with that. And I admit this is challenging to deal with this. And I think that's why people often don't want to openly talk about that. That's how you often have to deal with these things. Is you walk a walk where other people are judging you. They do, and it's very open. It's very open, where everybody sees your business and they're all judging you and evaluating you. but you have to actively manage that and turn that off. And I don't think people understand just how much everybody actually is judging you. So here's the second path. And this is a path that I think is more fun, more exciting, and more interesting. But it's difficult and nobody else has done it before. And that is the path of creating a system where you get positive reinforcement all of the time. Now, I did have that relationship for just a little bit of time. And, I get it from my family, I get unconditional love, sort of, from my family. It's always a kick in the gut. But I know my mom is there. I know my wife is there. I know my kids are there. And it's unconditional love no matter what. And I need that. But all the rest of it, right? We often don't get a lot of positive feedback. Nobody ever says that you're doing really well. The feedback is very, very intermittent. I don't think people understand that. I think it's like all of the time. No, it's like you go for months and months without hearing about anything. And then you have to process that. So you often envision and fill in the gaps and think about things in a very negative way. I tend to ruminate, which I think is very normal for anybody that's in this profession. And in fact, if you look at the evidence, there's strong evidence now across the board in many different studies, it's uniformly negative of doing PhD research in terms of dealing with the psyche. And, that's why people are generally pretty, if you look at memes of PhD memes, you're like, oh my gosh, nothing is positive. So if we build something together that gives us immediate feedback, that's positive, that's silly, that makes you feel a lot of good inside, that reinforces that you are a good person on a regular basis, and shows progress in a very meaningful way, we can change all of this. So that's what I'm doing with the reciprocity platform, is I'm actually trying to change all of this. I want people to feel that they're making progress, which I think is often not said and done, so that we can demonstrate to institutions, to the greater community, that we're actually doing work and we are making progress. And it's just one step after the other. But nobody sees that. Now, that's one thing, is to see that, but as well is to make sure it's always positive and fun and silly, so that you can actually figure out that you can do this and it's a positive experience, and where you get endorphin releases of just positiveness. So that's what I'm building with the reciprocity platform. If you're in the right situation with the right supervisor, the right team, the right institution, the right thing that you're studying, you should be able to get that anyways. But that is extraordinarily uncommon, right? I think that's where people get things mixed up, and they look at different units and they say, well, if that should substitute for all of those things and should help you out. A family should substitute. A good partner should substitute. A good supervisor should substitute. Yeah, that's if you have that. That is a big if. And many times it doesn't exist because we're not trained how to do this often, to give positive reinforcement. Nobody's told how to do this, and they're busy worrying about their own crap. So, in most circumstances, you're often figuring out that nobody cares, and you have to figure out how to deal with this yourself and process this. And what would happen if we had very clear feedback that was positive, reinforcing, and fun and silly, we would solve this problem dramatically. You move the needle, where we wouldn't have to, not always, deal with spite and contempt, and have this quiet confidence where we walk forward. Now, I don't think it is fundamentally all going to change, because there's many things that are going on. There's many institutions that I have to fight to change this. But even if we move the needle just a little bit, good things can come from it. I strongly believe that. There's many other examples where this has happened before, where there's been something that's very difficult and miserable, but it's just taken a little bit of innovation, a little bit of forethought to change things. And all of a sudden we see things a little bit differently. That's how it works. So if you want to join along, make sure you spread the word about the Reciprocity Project. I can only do this with your help. Make sure that you do all of the things to support this as much as you possibly can. And keep going. Develop that quiet confidence inside where you learn how to say just F you to the rest of the world and you do your thing. Because frankly, your thing is all that matters at this moment. Develop that confidence where you can get back up and do it again, regardless of what the world is telling you. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.